sometimes people look at climate as if it's a sector, right? And they say, oh, you do climate as if it's a sector, but it isn't a sector, right? It's a theme. It's a shorthand for the pressures wrought by climate change across all sectors, right? And so actually, when we started with our first fund, we looked for disruptive innovation across many sectors that was caused by climate change, and where there would be a rate of change that made it attractive for venture capital. And we've progressively, as the market has matured, have focused more and more on digital technologies, because with digital technologies we see rapid growth rates, we see far more rapid impact, and actually venture capital works better, bluntly, around digital technologies.
This is episode 50 of Baseline, and if you've been following the journey, you'll know this started as a way to make sense of the AI shift. Sitting down with founders, scientists, police, policymakers in government, asking real questions and refusing to accept surface level answers or hype. This video is different. To mark 50 episodes, doing something special. You'll still hear from an amazing guest. Patrick Sheehan at ETF Partners has been backing breakthrough technologies for over 2 decades, investing in climate before it was mainstream. But instead of just interviewing him, I want to break the video down and give you the insights and learnings that I get from my experience with these extraordinary guests. In this video, we'll talk about why climate tech is no longer a sector, and it's how it's unlocking opportunity in the most unexpected of places. We'll talk about how infrastructure like cloud storage and satellites are being totally rewritten by the pressures of climate. We'll talk about why the winners in AI won't be the loudest, but they'll be ones who act quickly and with the clearest sense of purpose. Through Baseline and these 50 episodes, I've built something I really didn't expect. I've built an amazing network of people at the front line, in universities, in business, across public and private sector. I've built an audience that is deeply engaged, that spans regulators all the way through to enterprise CTOs. And I have a growing base of founders and operators who use Baseline to navigate the reality of what's happening now and coming next in the world of AI and emerging technology. What started as a curiosity project and a personal learning journey has become something much more. I now work with early stage teams and enterprise leaders to cut through this hype and help them act on the shifts that really matter. Episode 50, let's get into it.
Baseline.
The baseline is designed to create an emotional response.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human. Make you question everything.
Patrick isn't just an investor, he's a pattern spotter. If you want to understand how data-driven investors spot opportunities before the rest of us, this one's essential.
You might have noticed I kind of like thinking about cost curves sometimes, because they tell you a bit about the future more reliably than events. And you can look at the satellite industry and see a cost curve. How much does it cost to put a kilogram of weight into space? You know, if you just track that and plot it, you see it's getting cheaper and cheaper. And so, just for badness, I was giving a talk on this the other day, and I said, and so I forget when the date was. It's about 10 years' time. It will be cheaper to put a kilogram of material into space in low Earth orbit than it will through the post in the UK, right? And that seems ludicrous, but it's actually, you just plot the curves, and the cost of post is going up, the cost of putting material into space is going down. They will. If those trends continue, it will cross over. And it seems ludicrous, but there's no particular reason why that shouldn't be true. Clearly, that's a thought experiment, but it makes the point that the space industry is getting much cheaper.
We're not just talking theory here. Patrick's on the board of Open Cosmos. He's watching the satellite sector evolve in real time and he's bullish on Europe. What he says next ties together infrastructure, space, and AI into one powerful converging trend. This is a wake-up call if you think the US owns the future of space and AI. Look, I'm a Starlink customer. Low Earth orbit satellites. That technology has become the foundational communications infrastructure behind all sorts of things.
And it's amazing. And actually, Europe is incredibly well placed now. We have an investment in a company not too far away from here called Open Cosmos. We invested a couple of years ago, and the growth rate's been fantastic, right? And the prospects for the company are fantastic because this world is really changing rapidly. And by the way, it does tie into many other technology trends. One of their satellites already has some onboard AI processors, etc. And so all these trends are converging in a way which is exciting and probably quite unpredictable.
Now, let me bring some of my own experience in here. I spent 20 years in enterprise infrastructure. When I saw Cubbit in Bologna recently, it honestly surprised me. Patrick explains why it matters. If you're working on AI, storage, or edge workloads, this section could save you millions of dollars. The technology they're building is just more power efficient. It is playing to the decentralized narrative, which is exactly what companies are looking for to reduce socioeconomic risk.
In short, they make cloud storage more efficient for people, as well as giving people sovereignty of their data, giving them the ability to withstand ransomware and so on, and many other benefits. But the core benefit from our perspective is actually that they're much more efficient, and efficiency is a big win. And so it's a lovely, currently little business in the process of becoming a big one.
What comes next is one of the most honest takes I've heard on the AI hype. Patrick's seen this movie before. .com, clean tech, now AI. The segment reframes AI, not as magic, but as the next layer of infrastructure.
I think it's in a bubble now. But you get bubbles on big waves, is how I'd express it, right? There's always bubbles around, and it suits the book of some of the people in charge of some of the biggest companies around AI to create big bubbles. It makes money cheaper for them. They can get access to more resources, so of course they hype it up, and it's the nature of the beast. In some ways, if you look back at the .com bubble and bust, you can see strong echoes, right? That today AI companies are really exciting, valuable things. If you go back to the late 1990s, internet companies were really exciting things, and then after a few years they really weren't. And then after a few years there were no internet companies anymore. Of course there weren't. It's just infrastructure, and that trend of AI just becoming infrastructure is happening to us now, right? It's happening very fast. And so a lot of every company will have to be an AI company at some stage, right? In some measure, part of the strategy needs to encompass AI. So where do you draw the line in calling it an AI company or not? And that transition will be chaotic. There will be some of the big companies that appear to be winners today will probably fail and go out of business. And there's probably some that will pop up that we've never heard of.
The story he shares next is about why he started investing in climate technology. If you want to know how investors actually move markets, this is it.
But part of that involved persuading them to start a venture business in the early 90s.
3i.
There used to be venture capital and private equity in the UK, like 90% of the entire market, if you go back in time. So I joined them an embarrassingly long time ago now, 1985, right? In the early 90s, when we were living just down the road in Henley, I was coming out of the then recession. I said, we should have a proper US-style venture business. So the three of us started it. Grew to be about 100 people by the late 90s because it did really well. And I found myself saying, it doesn't actually make sense. You can't keep making this thing bigger. It makes no sense to be scared of going to America. We should go there. So I went there in 1999 by the time I got there. Built a team for 3i there. But I always said, we'll come back because we had young kids and they're growing up. And we did want to come back. Having decided that climate change was real, it would seem kind of embarrassing not to do anything about it. So I thought, well, you could use venture capital to address that, right? You could fund the innovations that would help address it. So we started a fund in 2005 we started. And that was, it would be polite to call it evangelical at the time. That was the sort of thing where we said, we've got this fund focused on the environment, and people say, what? So it wasn't really a thing.
Climate denial is rare now, but Patrick says the bigger issue is apathy, the belief that we're too small to make a difference. But this section flips that and shows why first movers don't just do good, they win.
In Europe, at least, it's hard to find people who don't believe in climate change. Even the skeptics these days believe in climate change. They just believe it's bizarrely too expensive to address, which is a strange subject we could get into. I think the argument would be, we're a small island, it costs money to address climate change, we can't make any difference, and we're skint, so let's leave it to someone else, which entirely misses the point that when there is a technological shift or rapid market change, those in the vanguard of change make the money, and so if you believe there's going to be change, you should be first.
When they launched ETF Partners, it wasn't popular to talk about climate, but Patrick and the team saw something really important. Digital tech moves fast, and VC thrives when change is happening exponentially.
When we started with our first fund, we looked for disruptive innovation across many sectors that was caused by climate change, and where there would be a rate of change that made it attractive for venture capital. And we've progressively, as the market has matured, have focused more and more on digital technologies, because with digital technologies we see rapid growth rates, we see far more rapid impact, and actually venture capital works better, bluntly, around digital technologies. So we focus more and more. And with the passage of time, by the way, from those early days we were evangelical, there was a lot of technology push. Technology push as a generalist is really hard.
This is the big one. Will tech trap us or transform us? Patrick lays out the case for intelligent AI use that's grounded in purpose.
I think we take ourselves, so that isn't dodging the question. I think it's how we choose to use it. So I think there's enormous benefits to the intelligent use of AI. There are clearly applications that will benefit humanity astonishingly, from medicine through to longevity and onwards. But we can also squander it on trivia, right? And we will to some degree. So I think I would just say simply this, that technology will evolve rapidly. There's no practical option of stopping it, nor should we, because we will be trapped in a world which is unsustainable, and we need to get towards a sustainable world. So I think it's important that we invest with purpose in things that will help create a better world. And I would love to see, from governments, from large corporations, right down through to venture capital and private individuals, people investing with purpose more and with a longer range sense of what they're trying to achieve.
And we close with something personal. Patrick shares an amazing moment where he realised that behind every big shift, every ambitious system is a group of people who believe it's possible. If you need a reason to keep building, it's right here. That moment Patrick was driving into San Francisco back in the late 90s, he realised that optimism is everything.
When I was going over to California and thinking, how do I persuade my then company 3i that we should start a venture capital business this is 1998, right? And it seemed so obvious, but when I was there, I was thinking everything's really expensive, and this boom's bound to end. And I was in the back of one of those city cars going into San Francisco with a guy called Bill Hambrecht, who had a firm called Hambrecht Quist, and I started to do my British whinge about all the difficulties and issues and reasons to be nervous. And we just come around a corner, and through the mist you could see the towers of San Francisco. And he leant over and he said, "You see that city? Optimists built that city." Mm-hmm. And it always stuck with me, right? Optimists make things happen. Mm-hmm. And so I think I'm just naturally an optimist, but I would be an optimist by design anyway, right?
We are in a computer game.